During the Second World War, American GIs regularly gathered together around radios to listen to a program called 0 Hour. This program was an English language program that distributed news and music and was produced in Japan but transmitted out all over the Pacific. The Japanese would intend for this show to act as a morale-sapping piece of propaganda to the Americans, however they instead viewed it as a distraction from the conflict and the boredom. One particular part of the program that would invoke fascination was the show's female host. She would speak in a husky voice and would say jokes and taunts in between playing records. Known as Tokyo Rose by the soldiers, they would create exotic stories about this news reporter and her background. However, what was the real story behind Tokyo Rose? Born on July 4th, 1916, Iva Toguri was the daughter of Japanese immigrants who owned a small business in Los Angeles. She had a rather modest youth and graduated from UCLA with a zoology degree. In 1941, her parents sent her to Japan to care for an ill family member, and Toguri had never been abroad before and became homesick. Problems grew for her when in December of that year, she was refused a place on a ship home, and a few days later, the Japanese would bomb Pearl Harbor. When the US declared war on the Japanese, Toguri would find herself trapped in Japan. The military police tried to make her renounce her American citizenship and swear allegiance to Japan, however she refused. Because of this, she was classed as an enemy alien and tracked. Toguri would then become harassed by neighbours and the military police, and she moved to Tokyo to become a typist at the broadcasting organisation Radio Tokyo. Here, Toguri met Major Charles Cousins, an Australian military officer who had been captured and prior to the war had been a successful radio announcer. Cousins was then forced to produce a propaganda show called the 0 Hour for the Japanese. He had been attempting to sabotage the programme by making it harmless and a laughingstock. Toguri would smuggle supplies to Cousins, and he created a plan to use her on air. Initially hesitant to go on the microphone, Toguri became part of Cousins' plans. Beginning in November 1943, her voice became a regular feature on the 0 Hour, and Toguri would adopt the handle Orphan Anne, and became a natural in reading the scripts in a joking manner. Recordings and transcripts of her broadcasts show that she never threatened her listeners with bombings like the usual wartime propagandists. She was one of many women who read propaganda, and some of these would be much more sinister. As time went on, Tokyo Rose or Toguri would become as famous for the Americans as Hirohito was for the Japanese. For over a year and a half, Toguri would perform as Orphan Anne on the 0 Hour, but up until the Japanese surrender, she would be used less frequently. During this time, she had married and was looking for a home, but remained very poor. She would earn only 150 yen per month, which was about $7, and she would spend this sometimes on feeding prisoners of war by smuggling food. Overall, Tokyo Rose hosted around 340 broadcasts. After Japan's surrender, she would find herself with an offer of $2,000 for an exclusive interview with Tokyo Rose. In need of money, she accepted the offer but was instead arrested on September 5, 1945 in Yokohama. Toguri would be released a year later after the FBI found no evidence that she helped the Japanese forces. This was backed up by her American and Australian writers, who were in fact prisoners of war themselves. After being found not guilty, she requested to return to the United States as she was now pregnant and wanted her child born on American soil. Sadly, her baby died shortly after birth in Japan. However, anti-Japanese sentiment was very high in America at the time. Subsequently, a campaign started against her, and in 1948 she was re-arrested and charged with 8 counts of treason. At her trial, she stated how she remained loyal to the US by sending up her broadcasts. Charles Cousins even came to the United States to testify on her behalf. Much of the case hinged on a broadcast where she said, "Orphans of the Pacific, you are really orphans now. How will you get home now that your ships are sunk?" This remark wasn't on her transcripts, however was seen to be a deciding factor. In October 1949, she was found guilty of 1 count of treason, stripped of her American citizenship, fined $10,000 and sentenced to 10 years imprisonment. She was paroled after serving 6 years and released in 1956. Following her release, she moved to Chicago, Illinois. Her reputation followed her and she had to fight off a deportation order from the US government. Over the next 20 years, there was very little developments in her case. However, public opinion shifted towards Tokyo Rose. In one of his last acts in office, President Gerald Ford granted a request to pardon Toguri, exonerating her of treason and restoring her American citizenship. The woman known as Tokyo Rose then returned to her private life in Chicago and died in 2006. Her broadcast would live in infamy with American soldiers throughout the war, and the mystique of Tokyo Rose would live on for decades after. We hope you found this video interesting. To support the channel, please make sure to subscribe. Once again, thank you for watching.